ready. All right, so let's find slope using right what we did in class. So slope is y2 minus y1 x2 minus x1. And all you need is 2 points. Now, obviously, you want the 2 points you can measure. In this case, we do. So you wouldn't pick, I don't know, I'm making this up. You wouldn't pick this point because I mean, I don't know what that is. It's like 1, 2, 3.5. I have no idea what the x coordinate is, and even less than y coordinate, -2 and something. So obviously you want to pick points you can, what do you call, know the location of. So y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So we have 2 points, and let's call this A, let's call this B. Point A looks like -1 and -1. Point B looks like 2 to the right and 2 down, or 2 and -2. Again, you can pick. Let's just call this x1, y1. Let's call the other one x2, y2. Why did I pick those? Because you want to make it the other way. It's up to you. So now let's find the slope. y2, which is -2, minus y1, which is -1. So this is what I have. The change in x, and now the change in y value. So 2 minus -1 on top. So I get -2 minus 1, or -2 plus 1, is -1. And at the bottom, 2 minus -1 is 3. Now, the other way you could have done this without all this adding, subtracting in this particular case is just measure your change in y value. So think about this. So to go from point A to point B, don't I go 1 unit down and 3 to the right? So the change in y values would be 1, and the change in x value, so to go from this to here, don't I go 1, 2, 3, 3 units to the right. So let me put the arrow up and down. And then the only thing you needed to do was add the negative sign. So that would have been a much quicker way. So I'll do both just for the first 4 problems, because now here I know my slope is going to be positive. So change in x value. So think about the y value. So we have 1, 2, 3. So the change in y values is 3 units. And left and right, the change in x values is 1 unit. So the slope would have been 3. And let's just verify that. So let's call this A, let's call this B. Point A is -1 and -4. Point B is 0, -1. So let's do M. Again, let's call this x1, y1. Let's call this x2, y2. So -1 minus -4. And then the x2 would be 0 minus -1. So on top, -1 minus -4 is the same thing as -1 plus 4, which gives me 3. And at the bottom, 0 minus -1 is just 0 plus 1, which gives me 1. Isn't this the same answer as that? So when you have the visual part, you can definitely cut corners here, right? And you can just measure the change. So let's do 3 and 4. So 3, look at 3. And let's look at the change in y value. So from here, right, so we go, the change in y values is this direction, right, up and down. So we gotta go 1, 2, 3. So the change in y values is 3. What's the change in x values, which is left and right, right? Change in x values. So we're gonna go 1, 2. 3 over 2, and what's the one thing we have to do is put a minus sign. It doesn't matter if you put it on top and the bottom. The whole thing is negative anyway. So the slope is -3 over 2. And again, just to, let me write down here, -3 over 2. All right, so imagine you had this point over here, and you knew the slope was -3 over 2. Well, and we wanted to go to the next point. Well, remember what we did in class? You would count 1, 2, 3, and then you would move 2 to the right, and there is your next point. I'll do this again using y2 minus y1 just to make sure. Let's get to 2 points. So we have 1 point, point A. Let's call this point A. Point A is 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right, -4 and 0. Point B is 1, 2, -2 to the left, left. and 1, 2, 3 down, negative 3 down. So y2 minus y1, we get negative 3 minus 0, right? Negative 3, so sorry, x1, y1, x2, y2. So 3 minus 0 over negative 2 minus negative 4. Well, negative 3 minus 0 is just negative 3, so that's what I get on top. And at the bottom, 2 minus negative 4 is the same thing as negative 2 plus 4, which just gives me 2. Look at that. So whether you do it by finding a difference, right, the change between the y values over the change over the x values, or you can just count the little units. But again, you have the luxury of a graph, right, and 2 points. You're not going to have that all the time. So now, but since we have it, might as well use it. So m, find the slope of this line. The slope is positive because it's going right from left to right. So changing y values, so let's count 1, 2, 3. Changing y values is 3. And what's the change in x value? So it's going to be 1, 2. So, right, so this is your changing y values, and this is your changing x values. So up and down between the 2 points is 3 units, and left to right between the 2 units is 2. There you go, 3 over 2, positive. 5 and 6, let's take the shortcut. So 5, it's a positive slope again, right? So again, let's do the y. So the y is going to be this line right here, from here to here, right? The change in y values from that point to this point, the change in the height is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Changing x value going left and right is going to be 1, 2, 3, 5 over 3. The slope of this line is 5 over 3. This one, again, is a positive slope. Changing y values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Changing x values, 1, 2, 3, 7 over 3. Don't change it to a, what do you call it, decimal. Okay, so leave it as a fraction, because as a fraction, you can do that little trick of just counting squares up and down. This one, slope is negative, so let me put the negative sign right away. And changing y value, so changing the y value, the difference in y values is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Changing x values from that point to that point is going to be 1, 2. Well, obviously, we're going to write it as negative 3. Last one. So if you subtract the y values, you're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to be 7. And if you subtract the x values, you're going to get 1, 2, 3. And it's a positive slope. Okay. Now, these next 6 problems, again, these you don't have a choice. You can't. We don't have a coordinate. Now, this you'd have to do y1, x1, y1, x2. So just for this, you know, x2, y2. So I'm going to do that for all that row, x1, y1, x2, y2. So this whole side, every first coordinate point is going to be my 1s, and the second one will be y2. So let's go straight to it. It's y2, so 14 minus 10 over negative 7 minus 8, and we get 4 over negative 15. So the first one, the slope is negative. Second one, or actually second one is here, 10. It's 2 minus 1 over negative 17 minus negative 3. And that's going to give us 1 over negative 14. Okay. 11. Again, remember the first point here are my 1s, the second are my 2s. So negative 10 minus negative 4 over negative 12 minus negative 20. Then I get here 4 negative 6 over 8, positive 8, or better yet, simplified negative 3/4. So that's number 11. 12, we get negative 8 minus negative 5. We're going to get 0 minus negative 12. So we're going to get negative 8 plus 5, which is negative 3. And at the bottom, we get 12, positive 12. Simplified, we get negative 1/4. So number 12, the slope is negative 1/4. 13. So again, remember, x1, y1, x2, y2. The bottom one's 2. x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so white. So m is 16 minus negative 6 over x2, which is 15 minus negative 19. So that's going to give us 16 plus 6, which is 22. And at the bottom, we get 15 plus 19, which is 34. Can we simplify that? 11 over 17 would be the better answer. Yeah, they're both right, but simplified version. 14. So negative 9 minus 9. Uh-oh. And then over 7 minus negative 6. So negative 9 minus 9 actually is negative 18. At the bottom, 7 plus 6 is 13. And we want to leave it like that. So that's a negative slope. And then we got two more, the bottom two. X2, Y2. Then we have the last two. M equals, well, negative 15, right? Negative 15 minus negative 20 over negative 18 minus negative 18. So m equals negative 15 plus 20 is negative 5, positive 5. And negative 18 plus 18 is 0. Oh, look at that. We talked about this today. So 15 is, the slope is undefined. Okay. 16, we're going to get 12 minus negative 18. And then we're going to do 11 minus 12. So 12 plus 18 is 30. 11 minus 12 is negative 1. So the final answer is just negative 30 is the slope. Okay. Okay, so this one. Find the slope of each line. Well, the slope, I mean, remember the equation of the line is written in this format. Y equals mx plus b, where this little fella is a slope. And this b represents the y-intercept, right? Where the line crosses the y-axis. So in each of these, well, I'm going to write it. Slope, m equals negative 5, m equals 1/3, m equals negative 1/5. Now this one, undefined, right? The slope is undefined. So think about it. If you graph this, right? So if I gave you x equals 1, I asked you to graph. Well, this is x and this is y. Right? Let's make a few numbers here. So x equals 1, you would find x equals 1, which is here. And x equals 1 is this line over here. That's the line, x equals 1. Think about it. Any point that you select on this line, right? It's going to be 1 comma something, 1 comma something. Well, it doesn't matter. The x value is always going to be 1 from every point on that line. That's what. And because that's a vertical line, and we talked about it, the slope is undefined. So this one, slope 1 over 4, positive, slope negative 2 over 3, slope equals negative 1. Remember, there's an invisible 1. Oops, sorry, not y equals negative 1, slope m. And then this one again, slope equals negative 1. So all I have to do is find the slope. Jeez. Okay. Is there more? Yeah. Two more. Now, and we talked about this way at the end of the class, is that these two are not in this format. So I don't know who m is and who b is, right? So change these 25 and 26 in that format. So I want to change 2x plus 3y equals 9 so that it looks like that. Well, I want to isolate the variable. It's like when you're solving the equation. So line in the middle. First thing we're going to do is get rid of that 2x. I'm going to do minus 2x on this side, minus 2x on that side. These two go away. 3y's left over on the left side. And on this side, 9 minus 2x. I'm not going to write 9 minus 5. I'm going to write negative 2x plus 9. Okay, so just already getting this in this format, right, where the slope comes first. Now, the second thing, we have to divide this by 3, which means I have to divide the other side by 3. Finally, my y is isolated. I just have y by itself. And then my slope is negative 2/3 x plus, and instead of writing 9/3, I'm just going to write. So what's my slope? The slope for 25 is negative 2/3. 26, let me just write that problem here. Again, let's make that look like this. So line in the middle, get rid of the 5x. I'm not getting rid of the 5x. Literally, I'm putting this 5x on this side. Right? I'm shifting the 5x to that side. So minus 5x, and then I'm going to throw the 5x to the other side, but it becomes negative. That goes away. 2y comes down. So I'm going to write negative 5x plus 6. Divide everything by 2 to finally isolate my y. So that goes away. And the y is finally by itself. But don't forget, I divide this by 2 and divide this by 2. So my slope ends up being 5/2x. And the y-intercept is 3. So the answer to 26 is m equals negative 5/2. Okay, so that sort of sums up. I think I might be missing something, but that should give you a little nice introduction for slope.